We're going back to the future on this edition of Dave's Retro Video Lab. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome to another edition of Dave's Retro Video Lab, the show where I buy old video cameras, I bring them back here to my lab where we test them out to see if they still work after all these years. Today in the lab, I have a special treat for you. It is a camera that you've probably seen in the movies, you've seen it on television, it's red, it's ingrained in pop culture. Take a guess, do you know what it is? It is the JVC GR-C1U camcorder, otherwise known as the Marty McFly camera. Let's check it out. Introduced in 1984, the JVC GR-C1U was definitely revolutionary for its time. With its signature red looks, compact form factor, plus its ability to record and play back video, the GR-C1U certainly stood out in the consumer electronics market of the mid-80s. Of course, collectors love this camera because it's essentially famous. Everyone knows it as Marty McFly's camera from the movie Back to the Future, and more recently it was featured on Netflix's popular sci-fi series, Stranger Things. I would certainly say it has a foothold in pop culture. Okay, now it is time to take a deeper dive into the JVC GR-C1U's functionality. Well, for a camera from 1984, they didn't really offer all that much in the way of functionality. There was a character generator that you could buy and plug in, and that was about it as far as any extras for the camera. But let's take a quick tour of the buttons and sort of how to turn it on and how to record, because there is kind of a gotcha when it comes to recording with this camera. So to start, we're going to take a look at what I would say is the most recognizable part of this camera. It's a VHS-C camera, so the tapes are much smaller than your typical VHS tapes. That's significant because that is how they were able to package this into basically a little small camera recorder, hence camcorder, and that was a significant step as far as the VHS-C format was concerned. But moving on, you have quite simply your basic VTR controls. You get your play button, your pause, record, eject, what is that, pause. Down here is the record button, fast forward, rewind, and then some counter buttons for resetting and whatnot. As far as adjusting the zoom, there you go. You have your telephoto and wide angle buttons for zooming in and out. So we also have right there, you have a port for a optional remote control, which started and stopped the camera's record process. Next to that, you have a port for earphones. Very important if you want to monitor your audio while you're recording. We're going to swing around to the front of the camera. Two things about this camera. One, it has a very small lens. I mean, it's a teeny tiny little lens, but I think that's all part of sort of the camera's compactness, I think. One other item here in the front is the power button. This power button was kind of elusive for me in the beginning. When I first got the camera, I was looking around like, well, where do you turn the camera on? And then, oh, of course, they put it in the front. Go figure. Okay, so now it's time to look at the camera controls. And if I tilt this up ever so slightly, and do that, you can see where we have your usual array of camera controls. Of course, you had your color temperature settings for outdoor or indoor. You had camera sensitivity, an iris, and what is that other control? Oh, sensitivity, white balance, filter, and the iris. Again, your usual array of controls with your electronic viewfinder. Now as we go around to the back of the camera, of course, you have the area where you put the battery, but right underneath there is your AV port, and this is where you would plug in the AV cable that you would run out to your TV. Okay, so One of the things that's kind of odd with this camera, and it's odd for 2020, but not 1984, was quite simply how to record. When I first got this camera and I took it out of the box, I plugged in the power cable, put in a cassette, and I'm like, gosh, I can't wait to see what the images look like when I record them with this camera. Well, there was a big bump, 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 bump. Well, what happened? Why wouldn't it record? Well, I plugged in everything, I checked everything. Now, the funny thing is, I hit this button here. That's what I thought the record button would be. In 2020, on the pistol grip of a camera, that's the record button. Then I'm like, well, there is, after all, as Andy, our camera person, pointed out, well, there is a big old record button right there. Wouldn't it be that? So, no, you hit that and nothing happens. So I'm still befuddled, like, what is going on? Well, I didn't think somebody sent me a bum camera, so I actually went to the instruction manual and read how to record with this camera, and then I realized what my problem was. Well, there's a difference between 1984 logic and 2020 logic, and what I mean by that is recording with a camera in 1984 required you to first power up the camera. I'll hit there, where is it? There's the power button. Okay, now I'm going to turn this back. All right, now here's the magic part. So in a camera back in 1984, what you had to do was hit play and record, right? Yes, play and record. I totally forgot about that. Now, what's interesting is when you hit the play and record buttons, the camera goes into pause mode. So it's not recording right now, but it's ready to record. And then what you do is hit this button right there, which essentially is a pause button for the camera. That was a little bit of 1984 logic that I had to go back and remember. So that threw me off for a little bit. Sorry for that whole dissertation, but I thought it was something interesting to talk about. Hey, and welcome to our Collector's Corner segment. I'm seeing red, I tell you. I'm totally seeing red. And it's not because I'm angry. It's because we have a ton of JVC boxes here, which are very cool. We have the camera box. We have the accessory boxes. All very hard to find, actually. And I'll tell you a quick story about getting my camera with its box. My son and I drove all the way up to Niagara Falls, which is about 8 hours away from where we live, to go pick up the camera with its box. I'd been searching on eBay for a really long time, and one finally came up with its original box, and I was like, I have to have it. I negotiated a price with the seller, and we worked out a deal, and I didn't want him to ship the camera. I wanted to pick it up myself because I don't trust, UPS tosses these things around like volleyballs, and, a very old camera is very sensitive, and I just wanted to make sure it got home okay. But going on further, we have the carrying case box. Of course, we have the camera box. We have the AC power box, the remote control, the car's power adapter box. So I got quite a collection here. I'm very happy with it. I love having the boxes. To me, it's one of my favorite aspects of collecting cameras, having the box for the camera. It's like going back to Crazy Eddie, those stores way back in the 80s, and, purchasing your cameras, your electronics. So it's very nostalgic to have the box. Now it's time to fire up our old friend here and see if it still works after 36 years. I have a color chip chart all set up off to the side, ready to go. I got a light on that. All we have to do is power up the camera, swing it towards the chip chart, and see if it works. One important note, I put in a VHS-C cassette in here already to save a little bit of time. The camera requires that when you want it to produce a picture. So I don't know why, but you have to do that. So to start, power cable. I'm going to plug it into the back. Next up, we're going to get our AV cable, which I've already hooked up to my JVC AV selector box. Okay, get that in there. All right, good. So I think that's all set. We got to turn on the camera. So remember the power button right up there. Now I'm just going to kind of ballpark the camera, aim it at the chip chart. When I hit the play and record buttons, hopefully we'll get a picture. So we're going to put this, oh, look at that. That's a tape, I guess. So here we go. Ready? We're going to hit play record. And wait a minute. Do we have, oh, hey, look at that. Oh, let's kind of clean this up a little bit, right? So I'm first going to check my focus. Good. And then I'm just going to widen out maybe a little bit. There's a little bit of a sheen on the chip chart. Maybe try the focus a little bit better there. Right there, I guess. Maybe zoom it in a little bit. Maybe like that and rack the focus. All right. Well, you know what? Other than the reflection of light up there, you know, I think the colors look okay compared to just eyeballing the chip chart. Wow, not bad for 36 years. Now, something interesting to note here, when we set up the lights, I just for the heck of it measured how much lux our key light on the chip chart was putting out, and it is 1700 lux. The lux in the studio here to illuminate me, I measured at 175 lux. So you can see how a camera from 2020 needs so less light to produce an image, whereas this guy from 1984 needs 10 times the light in order to reproduce the color and the image properly. Wow, I'm really impressed. Not bad for our old friend here. Well, now that we know the camera works, it's time to set it up on a tripod, aim it towards me, and let's see what I look like back in 1984. Okay, so we took the JVC GR-C1U, we put it on a tripod, swung it this way and aimed it towards me, and then turned on every single light in our micro studio and aimed it at me in order to properly illuminate the scene. Holy smokes, I feel like I am standing on the sun right now. It is so bright in our studio. Well, it's time to go. I want to thank you so much for watching our show. Please subscribe if you like our channel, and tune in next time for future updates on Dave's Retro Video Lab. I'm Dave, your lab tech. Take care, and we'll see you soon. In 3, 2, 1. Next up is our camera collector's corner. I hate to. Our associate director here is he's very frustrated right now. Bum, 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 bum. Collar, because you just got to do that. This is where it all goes downhill. Why do I have such a hard time saying that? F all this. We're done. Okay.